Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. Quick warning before we begin, in today's main story we do touch on the subject of miscarriage, so if that is a topic that makes you uncomfortable, you might want to skip this story. Now let's get started. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole here, and it's by user LargeEfficiency825. Am I the a-hole here because I told my ex-husband outside of our kids I don't care about his life and I don't owe his fiancé anything? So my 36 female ex-husband Tom, 35 male, left me for his work wife Tammy, 25 female, 2 years ago. I never liked her even before I found out about their relationship. The first time I met her at a work event, she told me while I was heavily pregnant with my youngest, "Better up your wife game or I might steal him off from you." Well, 3 months later, she did. This woman literally came with him to help pack the day he moved out and tried to have a one-on-one conversation with me about how she wanted our relationship going forward because she was going to be in my life. Then she said as a joke, "Told you I'd steal him away." I'm not going to lie, I'm thankful she did because when my ex made a comment about her being 23 and her brain not being fully developed, I got the ick so bad it turned my heart. I got everything in the divorce because I got him in his affair fog and gave 50-50 custody for our kids' sake. I'm civil for the sake of my kids so we can both attend events without drama, but other than that, I couldn't honestly care about them. Around June, Tammy came instead of Tom for pickup and practically skipped towards me to show off her engagement ring, saying she wanted me as a bridesmaid along with my daughters for something I didn't catch because I was in a rush to get our cat to the vet. Per Tom's texts a few hours later, she got upset because I had just said to her whole conversation. The same happened again in September when she told me she was pregnant, which again, my 0 Fs given upset her. In December, when she told me the second I opened the car door, "Tom's finally getting a son," to which I sarcastically replied, "I'm sure Lord Tom is excited about an heir to take over his land and titles," which caused drama too because Tom's family found it hilarious when Tammy was bad-mouthing me. December was the last time I saw her until today at drop-offs with Tom. As they approached me, I noticed Tammy didn't look pregnant anymore. Tammy tearfully said, "We lost the baby." I didn't answer, I just told Tom our second daughter has a birthday party tomorrow at 3 and the oldest has gymnastics at 5. Tammy literally screamed at me that I was a heartless bitch and bitter, then grabbed the girls' bags and walked away. Tom said I could show a little humanity towards Tammy, and regardless of my feelings, she is my kid's stepmother. I told Tom I didn't care about what she was going through because outside of our kids, I didn't care about them, and I didn't owe Tammy anything, especially pity. He called me an a-hole, along with other things, and left. Usually, this wouldn't bother me, but my ex-in-laws with whom I have a good relationship have told me I should have shown Tammy some empathy and at the very least pretend to care for the sake of the kids. Well, OP, personally, I don't think you're an a-hole. You don't owe Tammy anything and you've told Tom many times that you don't care about them. What Tammy went through, it's a horrible thing. Yes, of course, her loss and the pain that she must be feeling, yeah, it absolutely sucks. But again, it doesn't mean you owe her anything. Considering you have many reasons to dislike her, starting with the fact that she homewrecked your family completely. She stole your husband, which, now that you say, he doesn't sound like much of a prize because cheaters are never a good thing. But having said all that, there is one thing. Being courteous doesn't take away from being courageous. And this means that even though you have every single right to dislike and hate her or just be completely uncaring about her, acknowledging that she's gone through a loss and is in pain doesn't mean that you care about her or that you're her friend. And what do you guys think about OP's situation? What is your judgment? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Do Librarian 5886 says, "Not the a-hole. You don't have to do a thing for her. It's about co-parenting with your ex. It's weird to me that she's sharing personal details about her life. She must not have friends or something, but that isn't your issue. And Opie responds, at the same office party she told me to wife up my game, a few co-workers who I knew a long time told me she isn't well due to her being so straightforward. GM Red 2303 says, Dear OP, you are enduring a horrible situation with tact and poise. You are protecting your children and refusing to get pulled into this young, immature woman's drama. Why should you care about her upset? Admittedly, it is a difficult loss. It's like she wants you to congratulate her on her relationship with your ex-husband and sympathize with her troubles. Your ex and his fiancé are delusional. Stay strong and congratulations on making a new life with your family. And Opie responds, she once said that given my age, I should be mature for the sake of the kids and we should have untied front by forming a friendship. I won't lie, I stood there with my mouth open in shock for longer than I want to admit. Material Cellist 4133 says, not the a-hole. Also, tell the in-laws I would love to see you take the high road to the person who legit wanted to be a homewrecker and did become one with your home. I don't owe her crap and she deserves all the karma she got. And Opie responds, you know what, I will, because my ex-sister-in-law told me I should have gone nuclear with them like full-on Gone Girl multiple times over the last 2 years. Additional information from Opie's comments. I'm civil with both of them. I've never stopped them from coming to my home when events and parties fell on my time. I'll give my girls money and help them with gifts for Father's Days or birthdays. I told my ex from the start it's about the girls. That's it. After that, leave me alone. I'd never badmouth him to the kids ever. Don't get me wrong, at the start of everything, I did crap talk them both with my family and friends, but now I couldn't care less about them. I will say Tammy is a good stepmom, to which I'm glad. And in case you're wondering, these conversations with Tammy sometimes happen in front of the kids. While she is speaking to me, they'll come out, head to the car, kiss me goodbye and say our love yous. With the exception of our last encounter, none of us had ever raised our voices. And it's always like 5 to 15 minute long conversations, depending on the event. She said she wanted to be friends and told people like my in-laws that I can't put the past behind me for the sake of the kids. She even called me a pick-me. To that, my oldest told her father I've never said a bad word about him to them, so she wouldn't stand for it either. Nor would she tell them any information about me. Both Tom and Tammy have asked the kids multiple times about me in the past, and they tried to convince them that I was a bad person during the bridesmaid situation. My oldest told me and her grandmother, ex-mother-in-law. I told my ex I'd take him back to court if it ever happened again, and his family said they'd back me. Our oldest is 13, and then we have a 12, 7, and 2-year-olds. So I'm going to let them form their own opinions about them as they grow older. Also, I can't fault Tom on a lot of things, but his love for his children isn't one. If Tammy ever hurt them, I know he wouldn't stand for it either. Not to mention my ex-in-laws would be quick to act too. They're not married. I don't know why, honestly, because I didn't ask. I did ask for wedding dates because my oldest two wanted to get their hair and makeup done professionally for their father's wedding, but he never gave me a date. Maybe they put off the wedding till they had the baby? I don't know. Tom said I should have been more mature for the sake of the girls because Tammy was doing something special for us as an olive branch and apparently gave me a speech and apology when she asked. I'm going to be honest, she could have said something, but my cat was extremely ill and puking, so I was more interested in getting her to the vet. Finally, I'm enjoying my life. Honestly, single life is so underrated. I adopted 2 senior cats last week because I found out at my local book club our shelter has an end-of-life event every month. So you can give a senior cat a loving home before the end. I think when my kids are grown, I'm going to be the local cat lady everyone thinks is a witch. Alright, well, the community agrees that OP is not the a-hole and that she doesn't owe Tammy anything. And OP has given us a lot more context regarding the type of non-relationship that they have. which I absolutely agree with OP, and maybe Tammy shouldn't be going or be at pickups if it bothers her so much. Clearly Tammy wants to establish some kind of relationship, in which I agree with OP and I would do the same. I wouldn't want a relationship with this person. But I still stand by my original commentary in saying that being courteous doesn't take away from being courageous. In any case, it's time to move on to the update to see how this story ends, but before that, if you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to leave a like and a comment because it always helps, and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Now let's move on to the update. So I texted Tom today that due to Tammy's mental state, I prefer if he or his mom would do all the pickups from now on. And if Tammy's mental health gets any worse, I want the girls full time for a couple of weeks until it's a healthier environment for the kids. Tom tried to call me, but I texted him. I prefer texts, and he said he wanted to have a heart-to-heart. Yeah, it's not going to happen. I asked if it involved the girls, and he said yes, but it's also about all of us going forward and the relationship he wishes for us to have. Basically, he wanted family therapy for himself, me, Tammy, and the kids. I said if he thinks the kids need to see a therapist, I would be happy to find one we both can agree on. But again, he just kept bringing it back to us. So after a few hours, knowing it was going nowhere, I just left him on red. I called my ex-in-laws and told them the situation and how I didn't want to be involved with anything between Tammy and Tom unless my kids were involved. I reminded them I'd expressed multiple times I didn't care and I didn't want anything more than a civil co-parenting relationship. I told them that even though I value my friendship with the family, ex-in-laws, I will go low contact if it happens again. Ex-mother-in-law apologized, saying she was very emotional because at the end of the day, Tom is her son and he was heartbroken. Plus, the baby was her grandchild, which I completely understand and I forgive her. Now, here is where it gets weird. Tammy showed up at my house. Now, I've watched enough true crime to know not to open the door, and I talked to and recorded her by the doorbell cam. She was crying, saying she was sorry and she just wanted to be my friend. Then she said I needed to forgive her because she lost her baby as karma for what she did to me. She was saying other stuff, but I couldn't understand her. I rang the police and then my brother and Tom. She didn't get arrested or anything, but Tom talked to my brother, said he was taking her home and agreed it's best if I have the girls full time for now. My girls are at home safe and my brother will be staying with me for the foreseeable future. I'll be seeing a lawyer first thing Monday about full custody and a restraining order because I've got a sinking feeling it's going to get worse. Before it gets brought up, I just kept telling Tammy to leave my property because I didn't want to hear it. I don't know why I was brought into this because I was looking forward to my chill weekend. I'd also like to say that the people in my last post calling me jealous and bitter, I've got nothing to be jealous of because who cheats on you isn't a prize. He is Tammy's problem now, and for those of you who think that me saying I don't care about my ex's life means I'm not over him because I don't want to be friends with him or Tammy, please understand that your ex moved on when they asked you to leave them alone. They're not playing hard to get, they really don't want to talk to you. Okay, well, I guess the miscarriage is really affecting Tammy and she feels some sort of strange guilt for home-wrecking OP's life and she wants to be her friend. I absolutely understand OP wanting nothing to do with that and Tammy needs to get some professional help. It's a good thing that OP is taking precautions so that nothing happens to her and the kids. So on that note, here's wishing you the best in the future, OP. Thank you so much for sharing and take care. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Pro Revenge and it's by user Campfires and Conifers. An attorney's dream case, my parents versus the bank. Before we start, I'd need to give you all the setting context. This was in 1973, 50 years ago. Banks did things differently back then. Smaller rural banks in particular were not run the same way the bigger city banks were. There were far fewer federal regulations, and in a smaller community, people didn't always follow them anyway. I'm pretty sure they don't always follow them now. So, my parents had enough money to build a little ranch house in the country. The small bank in town approved the mortgage and the bank signed a contract to give Bob the money to build the house. Bob, as it turns out, was overbooking himself all over town, leaving his clueless minions to do the actual work. The build took longer and longer, with more and more work having to be ripped out and redone. And we're not talking about using the wrong color paint or nailing up some wonky trim here. The architect forgot to erase a line on the blueprints fully, and the framers built a wall through the bathtub. My mother was told, "Don't put anything heavy in the kitchen cabinets," because they were attached to the drywall, not the studs, using a few roofing nails through the back of each cabinet. The garage door opening was framed into the living room instead of towards the driveway, and so on. When the bank's representative showed up for the final inspection, my parents met him in the front yard and refused to sign off on Bob's work. The representative became angry as the bank had paid Bob a lot of money. He strode to the front door and pulled on the doorknob, whereupon the entire door, casing included, fell on him. It had simply been wedged, not nailed, into place. The bank called Bob, who finally showed up to supervise the work himself. The only problem was that Bob wasn't any better at building a house than his minions were. My parents still refused to sign off on the house. My mother was a stay-at-home mom in a nasty rental with 2 tiny children, while my dad was working 2 jobs while this was going on. Throughout the entire process, the bank and Bob treated them very poorly, bullying my mom and lying to my dad. What should have been an exciting time for my parents was ruined. My mom cried a lot. My dad got depressed. Finally, the bank threatened my parents with foreclosure, and Bob threatened to sue my parents for breach of contract because the bank refused to pay him any more money. So, my exhausted parents went to an attorney and gave him the rundown. Plumbing, electrical, tiling issues, the whole sorry mess. My parents were scared. All they had was their small down payment savings. So, if this became a lengthy court battle, the bank and Bob would win. The attorney, Tom, was kind, but my dad said he could tell that he and Mom were doomed from Tom's facial expressions as he sorted through the paperwork. Then, abruptly, Tom smiled. "Let's get everyone together for a meeting." He told my parents tomorrow. So my parents, Tom, the bank's representative, the bank's attorney, Bob, and Bob's attorney met at the bank. Tom didn't give anyone else time to begin. He said, "Well, my clients have decided that they no longer want this house. Please remove it." Everyone else starts to laugh. "Remove it? Have you lost your mind?" Tom, in a sweeping theatrical gesture, placed a deed on the table. "My clients own the land the house is sitting on outright. They no longer want the house. Get the house off my client's land." Bob's attorney stared at the deed, then turned and stared at Bob. "You built a house on land you don't own?" And Bob nodded. The bank's attorney started yelling at the bank representative. "You didn't finance the land the house was on?" The representative stammered, No. Tom said firmly, "As I said, gentlemen, you're trespassing on my client's land. I expect the house to be removed and the land returned to its original state at once." My dad said he'll remember the blank looks that everyone on the other side of the table passed on to one another for his whole life. Sure, the bank could foreclose on a house that wouldn't exist by the end of the week, with no way to recoup the money. They didn't even own the land it was on. Bob was out the 50% he'd paid out of pocket, plus he was on the hook for tearing down the house and removing it. On top of that, the bank would undoubtedly want him to repay the initial 50% they'd given him. Could they have gone after my parents? Sure, a foreclosure would have meant bad credit for my parents moving forward. They might lose their down payment. But to sign off on the house in its condition at that time would have meant thousands and thousands of dollars in cash to replace or repair everything from the roof to the basement before the house could be safely lived in. The bank knew my parents didn't have that kind of money. They're the ones who approved the mortgage. Suddenly, my parents were good people. It was all such a misunderstanding. The bank and Bob couldn't do enough for them. The house was brought in line with the original blueprints and specifications immediately at no extra cost to my parents, but considerable cost to Bob. My parents signed the mortgage. Bob got the rest of his money and just about broke even on the build. The bank's representative was fired, and Tom, attorney extraordinaire, got a stinging tale of triumph to recall to fellow attorneys for the rest of his life. Wow, that thing that Bob caught there on the deed. I don't know if this was a pro-revenge, but it was a very enjoyable story. Thank you so much, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.